The Russian founder of the Telegram messaging app, Pavel Durov, has been arrested at a French airport.
Now, the billionaire founder of encrypted messaging app Telegram.
The app has long faced scrutiny for enabling cyber criminals and extremism.
Trafficking, child sexual content and fraud.
Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram, was recently arrested by the French police. He was hit with 12 charges, including aiding in distribution of child exploitation material and drug trafficking. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll see that these charges aren't what they seem. The real issue here is Durov's refusal to give the government access to encrypted messages on Telegram, a platform that has long advocated for users' privacy. Unlike most mainstream messaging apps that sell your data for profits, Telegram has stood firm in its commitment to keeping users' information safe. But now with Telegram's coming to government pressure, it feels like we're watching the death of privacy unfold before our eyes. We are heading towards an era of mass surveillance, where our every move is tracked. Governments try to justify the shift with catchphrases like, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, or by pretending it's all about protecting the children. But while these arguments might sound reasonable at first glance, they quickly fall apart when you think about the real dangers of widespread surveillance. Dangers that threaten our individual freedoms and the very essence of democracy. As privacy continues to erode in the name of safety, we risk slipping into a controlled and monitored society that mirrors the dystopian future we once dreaded. This video is all about countering the arguments against privacy and showing you how you can go from 1-star privacy to a 5-star privacy. Let's start by taking a closer look at a place where this nothing to hide, nothing to fear mentality is not just a catchy slogan, it's a reality. China.
Picture your life in a place where everything you do, what you buy, how you behave, is tracked.
They have an unprecedented level of control when it comes to the choices, communications, and private transactions that citizens are making.
From school kids to political descendants, everyone in China is being watched. A communist nation with zero freedom to citizens. Technology tracks everything from which students shows up late for class and what meal they choose at the cafeteria to a national ID system that doesn't just recognize face but can even track and recognize how you walk. This high-tech mass surveillance system in China isn't only a modern technology that sprung up thanks to globalization, but an evolution of something that started long before computers and artificial intelligence was even a concept. In 1949, when Mao Zedong established the People's Republic of China, there were no technology, no algorithms, definitely no facial recognition cameras. Mao didn't rely on technology but rather capitalized on something more primal: fear. His surveillance system wasn't built on machines but rather by turning citizens into informants. Neighbor, friends, even family members became the regime's eyes and ears, feeding the state with reports of anything suspicious. The state was successful in normalizing constant surveillance through brutal punishment like starvation and paranoia that laid the foundation of what would eventually become a digital dystopia. Today, China is running what might be the biggest digital prison ever created. We're talking about surveillance systems so massive that it makes George Orwell's 1984 look like a children's story. Here's the crazy part. They've got 700 million cameras watching their citizens. That's literally one camera for every 2 people. But here's where it gets even wilder. Instead of letting people use global apps, China's created their own versions. Want WhatsApp? Sorry, you get WeChat. Looking for Google? Here's Baidu instead. It's like they've built a completely parallel internet, one they can control. And if you dare speak against the government, well, let's just say China isn't called the biggest prison for knights. The government claims it's all about security and maintaining order. But when you're in a country where that has already one of the lowest crime rates in the world, you've got to ask yourself, is this really keeping people safe, or is it about keeping people in line? The phrase, if you got nothing to hide, nothing to fear, is often thrown around casually.
You have nothing to fear if you have nothing to hide.
Until you look at how far the Chinese government takes it. In their defense, surveillance isn't just a tool for safety, but a way to prove innocence and supposedly maintain social harmony. But here's where this takes a dark turn. Remember Jack Ma, the charismatic billionaire founder of Alibaba who seemed untouchable? Well, get this, he's basically disappeared from the public life. And the reason? One speech. That's right, one speech.
Get to the mystery now surrounding tech tycoon Jack Ma. The billionaire founder of China's giant online retailer Alibaba has not been seen in public since October when he blasted Chinese regulators in a speech that drew fire.
In October 2020, Jack Ma did something that would change his life forever. He stood up and criticized China's financial regulators, saying, "Good innovation isn't afraid of regulation, but is afraid of outdated way of regulating." Now watch what happened next. His 34.5 billion Ant Group IPO vanished overnight, hit with a 2.8 billion fine. His 53.5 stake in the company crushed down to 6.2. The man who was once commanded in boardrooms is now learning farming in Tokyo.
When you say, I don't care about the right to privacy because I have nothing to hide, that's no different than saying, I don't care about freedom of speech because I have nothing to say, or freedom of the press because I have nothing to write.
And in China, they are just not watching billionaires. They're starting with 3-year-old children. School handing out ID with tracking chips, facial recognition cameras scanning kids' faces to see if they are paying attention in class. Even the lunch line has a face scanning tech.
红色是表示你的专注力显示得很高。
Teachers at this primary school in China
蓝色是走神了。
know exactly when someone isn't paying attention.
This isn't some Black Mirror episode, this is happening right now. When you normalize surveillance this young, you're not just tracking kids, you're programming an entire generation to accept being watched. Think about that for a second. These kids will grow up thinking that it's completely normal to have everything monitored. But wait until you hear about the zero COVID policy. Imagine an app that tracks your every move 24/7. Every store you visit, every street you walk, all recorded. And if you step out of line, they literally weld your door shut. The craziest part, they sold this as protecting public health. During COVID, people were trapped in their homes for weeks, losing their minds, depression were skyrocketing, and in one heartbreaking case, a 55-year-old woman trapped in her apartment for a month with braided doors saw only one way out, jumping from the 12th floor. And here's what they don't want you to know. The Chinese government buried suicide statistics, swept every of them under the rug, because admitting to the true cost of surveillance state, that would expose the whole system of what it really is. Not about safety, but about control. And the thing about surveillance is it starts as a promise of protection, but it ends with a prison of control. China's surveillance state promises you security, but the truth is that it was all about reshaping an entire culture. I mean, let's take a look at what happened to Uyghur minorities in China.
In an effort to keep the Uyghurs under constant watch, China transformed the province into one of the most heavily surveilled parts of the world.
Every Uyghur over 12 years old is forced to surrender their biometric data, including voice, blood, DNA samples, and iris scans.
Over 1 million Uyghurs found themselves in what government likes to call re-education camps. But let's call it for what it really is, a systematic attempt to erase cultural identity. And with AI, we're not just talking about cameras on street corners anymore. We're talking about algorithms that can shape what you think, feel, believe. Social media feeds carefully curated to create echo chambers, content that magically appear to calm you down when there's an unrest happening in your area. The craziest part, this is all happening right under our noses. Every move you make, every post you like, every app you use, it's all being watched, scored, and used to mold your behavior. As Shoshana Zuboff put it, they're turning our personal experience into raw material.
So surveillance capitalism is an economic logic. That's the first thing to know. And the way it makes money is it claims our private experience as its source of free raw material.
This isn't just about China anymore. These surveillance techniques are spreading globally, wrapped in shiny packages labeled efficiency and security. While we are busy scrolling through our feeds, the very nature of privacy and freedom is being redefined. Ever since Edward Snowden blew the lid off NSA's operation, we have known one uncomfortable truth. We are all being watched, every single one of us.
That they spy on bad guys, right? Define them how you will, but they're looking at particularized people that they have a suspicion they're engaged in some kind of wrongdoing. Well, the systems that I had built, the systems that my generation had built, had produced a system that instead spied on everyone.
But here's what most people don't realize. You still have time to take control. And I'm about to show you how you can exactly go from being completely exposed to becoming virtually invisible online. This is you right now, a digital nudist. Your entire digital life is on display, fully visible to every app and company. You're using Chrome without privacy extensions, Gmail scans every email, WhatsApp shares your data to Facebook, and TikTok is tracking your every move. Instagram knows where you are, and your default setting just let it all happen. Every permission and tracking request approved without a second thought. Companies are getting your entire digital footprint for free, and you might even not know it. But now, you're waking up to the reality that you can take control. You start to feel that something's wrong with free-for-all of data sharing. So you make a few changes. You can install basic ad blockers like AdBlock Plus, use a password manager like LastPass, enable two-factor authentication, and start reading those app permissions. Maybe you can even switch to Signal for some conversations. It's a good start, like putting a basic lock on your door. But your ISP still sees everything. Your phone's tracking is still active. And yes, your smart TV might still be spying on you.
Of this television, if you go in any one of the default profiles and you go to privacy and terms, what you'll notice with the smart television is there's an option called do not sell my personal information. And because we live in a dystopian world, this option is not by default checked. It should be the default when you pay over $3,000 for a television that you do not sell my personal information. But even when you pay that much for a television, the default is that they will sell your personal data.
This is where you get more private. At level 3, privacy becomes serious. You switch to privacy-focused browsers like Brave, use Proton Mail for encrypted emails, and run a VPN like NordVPN to mask your IP. Google is out and DuckDuckGo is in. You add privacy-focused browser extensions like uBlock Origin and Privacy Badger on Firefox to block trackers more effectively. At this stage, you're cutting off many trackers and stopping companies from easily accessing your data. They're still trying, but now you're making them work for it. If you're really committed to privacy, you can go even further. Now you're becoming a digital ninja, using Tor for anonymous browsing, encrypting files with VeraCrypt, and maybe even switching from Windows to Linux. Messaging is all done in encrypted apps like Matrix or Session. Your social media is decentralized with platforms like Mastodon, but now your entire digital setup is like a fortress, and companies and data collectors are struggling to trace you. This is the top level, where you just don't use privacy softwares, you adopt a privacy lifestyle. You're on secure operating system like Cubase OS or Tails. Encrypt all communication with PGP and air-grab your computers for sensitive work. Your phone might even be in a Faraday bag, blocking any tracking signals. You've ditched mainstream social media and compartmentalized every app and device for different purpose. At this stage, even the governments have a hard time tracking you. At the end of the day, remember, even moving up a single level from where you start now makes a big difference. Privacy isn't about hiding, it's about having something worth protecting, your freedom and your identity. They are watching. The only question is, what are you gonna do about it?